Hey guys, it's Anfield here. Welcome to a video that is going to be on the events of the past few weeks in regards to patch 10.0 and its cancellation and the replacement of that patch with 9.12. So most of you will know by now that patch 10.0 was cancelled and it's being replaced with this new 9.12 patch. They're skipping 9.11 because I guess they're worried about the similarities to 9.11, which I think is a little silly. Don't think most people say 9.11. If it would be a patch called that, it would just be 9.11. But hey, I don't really see it as a big deal. But regardless, this is what we're getting. We're getting patch 9.12. And so let's talk about that, and I'll basically share some of my thoughts about the changes, the reasons for the cancellation, and other things. Okay, so basically what went down is in the 10.0 patch, there was a new system, which is similar to something that Wargaming had already sort of done, as well as done in World of Warships in a way. And it's the emblem system, as many of you know. The inscriptions, we've always had them as an aesthetic application to the tanks, but now they're going to give bonuses. We already had this with the camouflage. The camouflage gives you a certain percentage added on to your actual camo value for your tank, rather than just being aesthetic. But the emblems and the inscriptions were previously aesthetic, and now they're being changed. Now the system itself, when it was first introduced in the patch 10.0 test server, actually I really liked it. I thought it was great. There were issues with it at first in regards to what was actually worth putting on your tank in a lot of ways, but then that was later fixed in future renditions of the test server. Now, here's the problem. Once you look at it, and it is a system that you can buy for credits as well as gold, like you used to always. But now you kind of to be competitive, yeah, you do need to put them on your tank if you want to be truly competitive. But I'll get a little bit more into that later. But anyway, so this system for credits though is very expensive, and it's incredibly expensive. In fact, per tank you have to invest quite a lot of credits. So this is where the big problem came in. People basically, full on rioted, claiming the system was pay to win. It's not pay to win. Pay to win means an advantage you can get in a game only accessible through real life money. This is accessible through in-game work as well. However, that in-game work is extremely expensive. So yeah, that's basically why 10.0 was cancelled for the main reason. Was the public outcry and feedback, many videos by Quickie Baby and Jingles complaining about it as well. So yeah, it was cancelled because of that. So this cancellation led to a lot of rejoicing in the community, people saying, oh yes, Wargaming is listening to us, etc., etc., which is, will seem to be true, at least to a degree. Now, that wasn't the only controversial thing about the patch. Initially, Wargaming had basically introduced the idea that the Chieftain was going to be swapped in for the current FV215B, which is a made-up tank. The FV215B is a tank that many people actually love, as fake as it is. But the idea of the Chieftain was even better. This absolutely gorgeous looking tank. We had all the models for it, everything, the HD. It was really nice. The stats looked really good on the tank. Everyone was really excited for this tank. And then they decided not to introduce it, and instead they toyed with an idea with the Super Conqueror, and then maybe they went back to the Chieftain a little bit, and now we're getting nothing. We are still getting this Centurion Action X, thank goodness, but no Chieftain, no swap there. I don't get this decision. I think, as far as I know, it's something to do with what fits into the tech tree, and I don't care. I mean, if you look at the FE215B 183, and its line is basically like Tortoise all like tanks up to tier 9, the ATs and then to the Tortoise itself, and then suddenly 183 random. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I can't think of a reason why the Chieftain wouldn't be introduced. I don't know. I struggle to think what the problem is. But that was really something that upset me quite a lot. So yeah, so basically two major things happened. But the primary reason the patch was cancelled was because of this inscription debacle, so to speak. So let's talk about that. So in these videos that we saw from Quickie Baby Jingles, etc., a lot was made about how good these inscriptions were and how it was basically another equipment slot because it was like having another pair of vents. Now, here's the thing. I think this is really basically what it comes down to is sensationalism. I don't think it's that big of a deal. The system obviously needed to be changed, and it is a benefit for an expensive outlay. Um, but to try and describe it as an extra equipment slot and some huge measure thing, I don't know. The thing is, if you're gonna have these inscriptions and these emblems, and versus someone who doesn't, it's not gonna be the difference between a red player and a super unicom. You're not suddenly gonna be amazing because your tank's gonna be pinpoint accurate and such. So to give yourself that idea is just frankly wrong, and sensationalist, as I said. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you put on inscriptions and things like that, it would be like 4% extra to your crew if you did it just for the crew rather than two for the crew with the inscriptions, which I think are basically crew anyway. I can't remember. And then you're maybe you picked individual tank crew members instead for the others. But either way, you're not getting the same exact thing as vents in terms of overall crew benefit. So to give this idea is wrong. Now, even if let's say we're on level with vents because they're close enough. Let's say these inscriptions and emblems are on level with improved ventilation on your tank. Now, even that it isn't that big of a deal because at the end of the day, if vents were really that strong, then everyone would put them on their tank. Most super unicoms that I know put vents on a lot of their tanks because we like to improve the tank's performance. We like to minimize the amount of RNG that'll affect the tank. This includes aiming time and other things like that. The less time you spend fighting the tank, the more time you can spend fighting the enemy. But vents is only a small increase, but we consider it worth it, more so than optics. Optics used to be quite dominant on mediums, tier 10 mediums that is, and now, with the meta, it's probably better to have vents over optics because optics, with so many city maps and other things like that, it's just you don't really get the vision meta anymore, so it's not as important as it used to be. But for your average player, most people don't put vents on their tanks. They really don't. They put other things on their tanks. Some people put binocs and camo. I mean, the kind of people that were like, probably buying into this idea that this is going to be some super OP system are the same kind of people that probably put binocs on, their heavy tanks and camo nets and other things like that. Vents is important, I think, on tanks, but to have this idea that it's some super improvement is misguided for sure. So yeah, just keep that in mind. While the system was expensive as it is, if it were to be introduced, it wouldn't be some as it is. It wouldn't be some game breaking system like some people would like us to believe. But then some people use the comment as the true measure of a player's ability, so who knows? Okay, so that was just a little bit of why it wasn't that much of a thing that people need to freak out about. But regardless, it did need to be changed. There's no question about that. It could be certainly improved. But here's what kind of annoys me is that you didn't need to cancel the whole patch because of this. This is, I mean, the issues with the system weren't the system. It was just how it was implemented and the costs and everything around that. Very easy things to fix, and now because of this, we don't get the system at all. I would honestly have preferred the system be put in as it is, only to be updated in a micro patch or something, if that's necessary. But it certainly wasn't necessary. There's no reason they couldn't have just delayed 10.0 a little bit longer and just been like, okay, we're going to review it. We're going to come up with a better cost strategy and other feature improvement systems. So, The whole thing, I think, is ridiculous to me. I don't see the point of scrapping 10.0 and be like, oh, it's 9.12 now, and certainly not just for this system. So to avoid talking about that anymore, let's get into what I would do to the system to make it a little bit more fair. So since cost is the main issue here, I guess we'll talk about that first. Now in Quickie Baby Jingle's video, they mentioned about, if you had to pay that much, then at least make them permanent for that amount of credits. This could work. I mean, I guess the prices would be fair if they were going to be permanent. So I mean, yeah, I think that's maybe the easiest way to do it. The only other way you could do it is have a permanent system for the current price, and then keep the rent system, but then drastically reduce the price of the renting system for credits. That is, and you could do it that way, or you could just not have a permanent system and just drastically reduce the renting prices. I don't think this is a really good system. But that's just the way to handle it. I think there's not a great deal more you could do about that. Other things that need to be taken into consideration, I think it changed. I think the system should be reworked so that when you buy an emblem of your choosing, it should then give you the option of what bonus you want. I think the idea that you have to pick certain emblems and inscriptions based around what is actually important for your tank, rather than what you might actually want to put on your tank in terms of aesthetic feel, I don't think that should be a thing at all. So that would be one of the other things I would change as well. And something else to think about too is I was recently talking to someone that plays the Conch GC, and he said that because of how some of the gunnery buffs work, as you guys are aware, let's say you put an emblem that gives you 2% to your gunner's ability. You can also put something that's 3% to your gunner's ability, but then that has a special activation. Well, apparently you can do one where as long as your tank is above 80% hit points, this is active all the time. So you can put it on an artillery piece, and of course it's going to be above 80% hit points all the time. And he said the difference between aiming was incredible. So I don't think, and maybe I'll get stick from already lovers, but I don't think artillery should be able to take advantage of these things at all, because Artie needs a rework, not a buff. And I dread to think quicker reloading and quicker aiming artillery pieces in the game. So yeah, Wargaming need to be a little bit more cautious and think things through in those terms as well. Now, Wargaming are also pretty good about introducing ways to get flags already during certain independence events and other things like that, but they could do more, especially in this regard for emblems and things like that, and inscriptions. Allow you to access them through mission completions. They don't even have to be complicated, just generic missions like, I don't know, do 8,000 damage in a to end game, I don't know, and here's an inscription of your choosing. If the missions are relatively easy to do, then the pricing on the inscriptions and emblems should remain high, and that way those who are doing the missions themselves don't have to pay the outrageous prices. But if you can't do these missions or are too lazy to do the missions, then you're going to pay the higher cost. You could even go as far as to say that you either pay gold for the emblems and inscriptions, or you complete certain mission sets. So you could do it that way as well. So the final thing off the top of my head is that you just need to make sure that the arbitrary restriction on some tanks only being able to put one emblem on versus two on other tanks is fixed. This is something that is very odd anyway, but will be something that would actually become a problem once this system is introduced, because some tanks will gain greater bonuses from this than others. So that's all I've got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you thought, and also if you've got ideas yourself what should be done about the inscriptions, whether you're happy they're removed for the foreseeable future, or whether wargaming should have taken a different approach. And as always, guys, good luck on the battlefield.